Hey guys, welcome back to me being cheap. All of these papers that you see laid out, these are financial papers from about 15 years ago or from the year of 2002. So the IRS says that you need to keep your tax information for about 6 years, but I have room so I can store for a little bit longer. But I do reuse these boxes, and so this one's labeled O2. This is going to become 2017. I am working on sorting paperwork for this year's taxes and was trying to make room so I would have an empty box where I could put my documents. And so I had started looking through here to see if there was anything I needed to keep, and I thought it was pretty interesting what I found out. So again, this is 2002. This was about 15 years ago. I'll set that right there. So a little bit about the situation. So that was before kids. So no kids. I have 2 children now, and I was still married at the time. So 2 adults, and this was about 15 years ago. So this is way before I'd even heard of Dave Ramsey. And and if you're worried about any sort of identity theft, none of these accounts exist anymore, and I've also blocked out all the names and pertinent information. That's what all the black lines are, so none of that's visible. But anyway, this was way before Dave Ramsey, and this is what normal people do. And I want to show you the very, very sad financial state that I was in at that time, and I did not know any different. I was just doing what everybody else did, and I look at this and it's like I am absolutely disgusted as to what I see. So first of all, this is the actual tax return. And years ago, I used to do my own taxes. However, now I use one of Dave Ramsey's ELPs, and I've used him for several years now because I work at home. I want to make sure I do everything correctly with those deductions. Without showing you this information, because I didn't black out this information, I do want to tell you what the household income was 15 years ago. The number was $67,809, and this was married filing joint. So 2 adults, 1 household. $67,809. That's how much the household was making. So let's take a look at some of these and see if it's congruent with what Dave Ramsey says, and maybe things that weren't being done correctly. Boy, I wish I would have known about him sooner, and I would have made a lot of different decisions. You know, Dave Ramsey says that money and money fights are the leading cause of divorce in America today, and we know that about half of all couples that get married end up being divorced. I wouldn't say that was necessarily a problem, although we clearly didn't know what we were doing. There's a lot of things that if I could go back in time, I would definitely do differently. So, first of all, what I thought was interesting, okay, so back then we had debt, and while you're still trying to get yourself out of debt, you know, you can do your usual tithe, but any other charitable giving beyond that, you really need to get yourself out of debt first. So you need to take care of yourself first, then you can go on and do more giving. But I was trying to do too many things at once. So let's see. I was working for a private college at the time, and we were having a capital campaign, and I had started a scholarship that I was making monthly contributions to in honor of my mother. So that's a good idea in theory. I did get a letter for a tax donation because that is a nonprofit. But if you are in debt, you do not need to be establishing memorial scholarships. Wouldn't have done that. I used to host exchange students. Again, you get a tax letter for that. But bringing somebody else into your family to stay with you for a year, and you're responsible for all their entertainment, their food, their school cost, everything like that. Now, don't get me wrong, we had a lot of fun with the exchange students. That's something I really, really enjoyed. It was enriching. But I probably should have had my stuff in order before I did that, looking back on the situation now. But anyway, so that's another thing that I may have done differently. Okay, so let's see. So my hobbies these days are things such as baking bread, figuring out how to fix stuff, and making YouTube videos. So the YouTube videos, I'm not making any money on that. YouTube just moved out the criteria a little bit more. I probably will never get to the point where I'm making money on YouTube. That's okay. It's just fun. It's just a hobby for me. But those of you that are watching, I do appreciate your support. Well, let's talk about some expensive hobbies. Like to fly private airplanes, and did a lot of that. And so these are the bills from the flying club just for that year. Amounts of $568.40, $98 and a penny, $432.27, $653.52, $781.09, $127.57. Okay, so you get the idea. Flying is an expensive hobby. Had a lot of fun on those trips. Got to see family, stayed in touch, did a lot of cool sightseeing. That's definitely a lifestyle thing. I enjoyed it, but had I done it properly, probably would have had a line item in the budget for this hobby, and then drastically cut back on other areas, because this is a very large chunk of change. So I don't regret this. I had a lot of fun with it. I wish I would have done it differently though. So this is the first half of the stupid tax on this one. I'll throw this back in the box. Okay, so I counted, and between myself and my then husband, we had 6 different credit cards. That's a lot of credit cards. So we had his and hers, and then we each had one of those credit cards where you get points. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we had Home Depot and a Sears. So let's talk about one of these in particular. This one is the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, or AOPA credit card. So all those charges for flying, we paid the bill with the AOPA card. Not very smart. So if I had to do it differently, probably would have put in the budget for flying, not charged it to the credit card. So that's an awful lot. Interest rate on this for purchases, 12.99%. Again, this was 15 years ago. So yeah, most of those charges on this one are for flying. So I would not do that. So let's take a look at this credit card here. This is the GM MasterCard. This is one that I actually had when I was first a teenager, and this is one of the ones that was early on marketed to have like a reward system. And I thought, oh yeah, I will save up these points and spend it on, you know, a new car. Well, the points, they never add up. At the time, my credit limit on this one was like only $500, you're never going to get any points on something that's only got a limit of $500. Plus, I never bought another GM vehicle. The only new vehicle that I have ever bought was a Chrysler Daimler, and that's not a GM product. So, yeah, this was kind of stupid. Dave Ramsey likes to point out this one. That's stupid on me, and I did that very, very early on. Never go that route again. That one even predates marriage. Okay, so let's talk Home Depot. Of course, this is an old house, and in 2002, that was actually before this kitchen was even built. In 2002, this house was in very, very sad shape. It was basically an old house. It's 130 years old. There wasn't any insulation when we moved in here. The plumbing was bad. The gas lines were bad. The electricity was bad. The sewer was bad. And there was no air conditioning. And the only heat that was in here were these little furnaces that were in each room that were gas. And so if you stood next to them, like your backside was burning, but your front side was frozen. So not very efficient in the heating and cooling area. So we were forever working on the house, trying to make it better. But what we did is we charged things onto the credit card, which I don't use credit cards now, but you can really get in trouble on some of these things. We've got balances of $472.35, $191.43, $710, $601. You get the idea. So that's Home Depot. I found one Sears bill from back then. It looks like a 7-piece ratchet set was bought in the amount of $137.65. That's some expensive tools. Okay, that leaves the 2 City Advantage credit cards, his and hers. So we got these, had a bright idea of, yeah, we'll just charge everything on these cards and get the points and take a trip, because, you know, like to travel and everything. So I actually have the actual statements from American Airlines. And, you know, at one time I had 23,718 miles. But did you know the miles expire? They never got used. Never got used. Looks like I was actually up to 30,063 miles. So that was a lot of charges on a credit card. I haven't looked at these. I know a lot of times there was some late fees that were assessed because they weren't paid on time. There was interest that was charged. So, you know, when you sign up for these credit cards thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to use these points, you got to be careful. It's a trap. I never used the points. And not only that, but there were balances on both of these cards, and a lot of times they were paid late or didn't get paid at all. There was a lot of disorganization. So I had thought about, since I have all this paperwork, since I obviously was not cash-based back then, I thought it might be interesting to see, you know, doing a 15-year look back, what all was spent on what. You know, we know that the household income was $67,000, and that was 15 years ago. But, you know, how much were we spending on eating out? How much were we spending on gasoline? How much, you know, how much on this? And then, you know, because I really don't feel like I have anything to show for it. Anyway, I would not do that again. All right, so this is a way that I kept track of what was due when, just paper-based. And looking at this, it's not too shocking. It's kind of interesting. I was paying on Sally Mae years ago. This was 2002. I started my debt snowball using the Dave Ramsey plan. I just did a video on that. I believe it was 2011. My last thing to get paid off was Sally Mae. Paid that off in 2013, I think it was. My estimated payoff date was 2025, but I was paying on it clear back then, you know, in 2002. And I'm sure I was paying on it before. But, you know, I can't remember which one was mine, which one was my ex's, but we've got $111.87 was one of them, and $112.53 was the other. So both right around $112. And so, you know, that's about $224, and then add to that all those crazy credit card balances, flying and so forth. I mean, I'm clearly overspending. Not only that, but it looks like we had a car payment, $245.30. Looks like owed the plumber, the local plumber was paying him off. Again, the sewer in this house was all the time messed up. So, I don't know, it's just, I look back here and it's like, it's almost like you want to throw up. You just look at how much money just, bye. I have no idea. It's like I don't know, crazy. Well, let's talk some more. Okay, so household income of $67,000. I'm not going to go into specifics, but I will say I had 2 jobs. My then husband had 2 jobs as well. So we'll put these pay stubs into the box. Be two stacks of paper per individual. Okay, now also during that time, if you think 2002, what actually happened back in 2011, that was 9/11. And the private college that I was working at, they had layoffs because here in Kansas, it's an aircraft-based industry down here in South Central Kansas, and many of the families are dual income, both working in the aircraft industry. Well, they had massive layoffs after 9/11, just massive layoffs. And there was a trickle-down effect from people that weren't supporting businesses and so forth because they had lost their aircraft job. There was trickle-down effects, and the college I was working at, they had layoffs, and I was one of them that got laid off. And so during that time, I had actually applied for unemployment, and I was actually denied because I was taking classes in nursing school, which I could have still had a job, but because I was taking the education, I didn't qualify for unemployment. So got that. And so there's this massive layoff everywhere. Something else that was going on is out in western Kansas, there was a drought, so a lot of the farmers and ranchers, they didn't have money to spend on like private education and other things. So there was a lot of things going on that was causing a little bit of downturn in the economy. Of the interviews that I got, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is me. I had a college and I had a master's degree. I got an offer for one at a community college, Labette, and that's out in southeast Kansas, and that was actually about 2.5 hours from where I live. And so if I accepted that job, I was going to have to rent an apartment, and I wasn't going to make that much more, so it's like it was kind of a wash. So at that point, when I couldn't find a job, I decided that I would just go full-time nursing school, and I am glad I did. I wish I would have done, that's another thing, I wish I would have done nursing first time around. The other job I was doing besides working at private colleges, I was also an adjunct instructor for community colleges. So I was teaching and then working at a private college. So that's a little bit about how I got into nursing. It was actually a layoff, and jobs, you just couldn't find them because there were so many people out of work. So I actually made it to 4 interviews, got an offer, but just couldn't accept it. And I will say, this interview here was the funniest interview. had to be the most stressful. I was seated at this huge table, this huge conference room table. They put me at the very end. The whole room was full. And part of this job was supporting Spanish speaking individuals. And I have a minor in Spanish. But any of you that know me know that I can't speak at all. But they actually conducted part of the interview in Spanish. And it's like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. But I guess they liked me enough to offer me the job. But there you go. Okay, so I was looking through the city bill, and I was actually kind of surprised. This is 15 years ago, and most of the amounts are in the $100 range. You know, somewhere between $100 and $200, and that's not too far off from where I am today. So that tells you a couple things. Utilities haven't increased that much, and then once you renovate your house and you've actually got insulation in there, you've got central heat, central air, that sort of thing. You know, the house was not air conditioned, so it's air conditioned now. So during the summer, obviously my bill's a little bit higher, but it's not that far off from here. So let me throw that in there. The same with the Kansas gas service bill. I'm on a levelized payment, so, you know, I don't know, it usually goes anywhere to $68 to $98 throughout the year. Everything in this house is gas, and there's gas stove, gas hot water, and gas heat, although the blower on it is electric. And that's the way it's always been in this house. But the amounts due, $71, $68, and here's one for $50, but not a whole lot of variety considering that was 15 years ago. So really what I think it is mostly this house is improved, where before we're trying to heat a house that's not insulated with very inefficient gas stoves. Okay, other areas that I would have done differently. There's 3 phone bills, 2 cell phones and a home phone. So got the cell phones in 1999 is when I got my first cell phone. We had a his and hers, which is fine. That's how most people do it these days. But I still kept this home phone. This is 2002, so 3 years later, I still hadn't given up the landline. I should have cut that a long time ago. Some of the amounts are $40, $26, $22. Looks like we were still using the landline to make phone calls, so I guess that's why there's a difference. But yeah, I probably would have given that up. So that's an area I would have improved upon. Okay, satellite dish. There hasn't been cable in this town for years. We had a roof-topping antenna. Should have just gone with that. Of course, Netflix didn't exist back then, and neither did the high-speed internet. So I don't know. This wasn't too terribly much. Looks like the balances were $23, $27, $34. So not too terribly much. But maybe while you're in debt, you probably shouldn't have that much. This is a stack of tolls. That's kind of unavoidable here. If you work in Wichita, most people will take the toll road as they keep it clean during the winter, and then the speed limit's also 75, and you're not being routed through the small towns where the speed limit's lower and there's chances of tickets. So not much to change there. All right, Dave Ramsey says that you need to have life insurance. So what was I doing right back then? I had a term life policy on myself. I had a term life policy on my then husband. So that was good. And I actually got that knowledge from my mother-in-law. She said, don't buy the other stuff, it's junk. So she actually knew that way before I did. So Yes, we each had a term life policy, although, and I don't have this anymore. Although the amount at the time was only 25,000, and that was 25,000 for me, 25,000 for him. What you're supposed to have is like many times your annual income. So, kind of got it halfway right back then. The other thing is I had a whole life policy from Northwestern Mutual. You better believe that when I got on the Dave Ramsey plan and learned about that, I cashed it out and used that on my debt snowball. So I got rid of that. Okay. What else? Let's see. Let's talk bank accounts. What did we do? Okay, Dave Ramsey says you need to have joint banking accounts. We did that. Their checking account. Okay. However, we had a his and hers. So, shouldn't do that. Okay, what else? Oh, I had investments. Shouldn't be doing the investing until after you're out of debt. So again, I was trying to do too many things at once. Spending money like crazy, doing charitable giving above and beyond a tithe, trying to do investing, and then trying to have a lifestyle I obviously couldn't afford. I'm really glad they stopped doing this. These are statements for health insurance every time there was like a claim or prescription filled or something like that. Had health insurance, that's one thing we did right, because you're supposed to have health insurance. Okay, looks like we had insurance on the home and insurance on the automobiles. Okay, good, you're supposed to do that. We paid our property taxes, we paid our vehicle taxes, that's good. So, that is pretty much everything. That is a review of the sad, sad shape my finances were in 15 years ago. So, household income of $67,000. That's 2 adults working 2 jobs each, a total of 4 jobs. 6 credit cards, 3 bank accounts, spending like crazy, trying to do too many things. So I wish I would have known now, or known then, what I know now. It's crazy. And, you know, I see all that and it's like, oh my goodness, where did all that money go? Where did all that money go? I probably ate it, you know, it's probably eating out at restaurants. So I just, and I know that there's still people out there today that live like this because they think that that's normal. I thought it was normal. I mean, that's what everybody was doing. They had credit cards. They put everything on a credit card, get those points. Well, didn't work out. You know, I didn't get the GM card and I didn't get the free flight from American Airlines. But you can believe me, when I get this mortgage paid off, I'll fly anywhere I want to fly. And I'll just pay cash for the ticket. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.